So today we're going to test the Skydio 2 Plus. We're going to run it through its paces a little bit, see what it does. See if it lives up to the name as being the best obstacle avoidance drone that's out there. So thanks for stopping by. Always appreciate it. It's good to see you. So today we want to talk about the Skydio 2 Plus. And this is billed as being one of the best obstacle avoidance drones on the market today. So of course we're going to run through all its tests. Now before we do that, I am not being paid anything for this review. Skydio will not get to see the video before it is posted and does not have the opportunity to approve or change anything in the content. So the views presented here are my own, based on my honest observations and research. So as I mentioned, this is best known for its autonomous flight with the best in the industry obstacle avoidance. And the way that it does that is it has 6 obstacle avoidance sensors built in. This allows them to apply artificial intelligence to their flights and navigate safely around obstacles. Now they're so confident, even in the manual mode for this drone, they will not allow you to take control and turn the obstacle avoidance off. Now, in its basic configuration, you can fly this with no controller at all. You simply connect it to your app with a Wi-Fi, and then you can control it with the app. But in addition, this drone can be controlled with a controller using an app just like you normally would. But also, it has a control mode with a beacon, which is another device that you can connect to the drone. And then kind of the last configuration is going to be the beacon attached to the app on your phone or device, then connected to the drone. It has these antennas on it, which is an improvement that they did, up to a 3.5 mile range. The batteries claim up to a 27-minute flight time. And as I mentioned before, it does have a lot of one-touch shots, including droney, orbit, cable cam, motion track, rocket, boomerang, all kinds of things like that. And we're not going to test all those today, but we'll do a few just to see how they work. And if you guys are interested, maybe I'll come back with additional videos and I'll go through all those different quick shots, all the different configurations, just see how they work. So let me know in the comments if that's something you want me to go through in detail. And something else that is world class that I have not seen with anybody else's drone is something called keyframes. Of course, I always mention that one of the most important things with drones, especially a camera drone, is the specs of the camera. And this is no slouch either. It has 4K 60 HDR capability for the camera. Lastly, before we get into the test, I want to mention that this drone is made in the USA. Yes, Skydio is a US-based company. Of course, like a lot of companies, they do get some of their parts made in different areas of the world, but it is all assembled and serviced and shipped right here in the USA. So once I'm done with the flights, I'm going to take it back to the studio and we're going to go through everything that comes in the box, pricing, my thoughts and everything on the final performance. So let's just do it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we've connected our app directly to the drone already, and we're going to go ahead and take off. And I'm going to do a hand launch. It's really got windy out here today, so I want to make sure that it doesn't go into anything. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, one of the neat things that they built into this drone is they built in a hand launch. And when you're hanging onto it, the button for the battery is kind of up front here. And all you do is you press that button 4 times, and it will go ahead and take off from there. So we're going to go ahead and do that. One of the things I do notice is that when you press on the different buttons of the app to either move it up or move it down a little bit, it does take a little time for it to kind of catch up, so it kind of drifts around a little bit when it finds its spot. It's a little unnerving while it's trying to kind of find its footing. A thing that is interesting is that this thing is just winging behind me. It is just zinging around here, so it does make you really nervous because the drone itself looks a little sporadic. But the video on the phone here actually looks pretty good. So I believe the recording that the drone is doing here, because it says it's auto recording, should be horizontal, although I'm looking at it vertical here on the app. So let's just take a walk around here. But boy, it does a really good job following. It really does. That's its claim to fame, is following. So I'm going to jump in here just a few times throughout this video and add a little bit more information that I didn't have while I was doing this video. And one thing to note was that on the vertical image on the app, it appeared like it used some of that horizontal footage that it was taking to center it in the app kind of artificially. Because when I played back the regular horizontal footage from the drone, it was being moved back and forth by the drone, but I didn't see that in the app. So just something to note. Now the nice thing with this app then, of course, is it's sitting here. I took it out of Motion Track. We can actually adjust the drone position by using the little buttons, and there's a few configurations of the different types of buttons that you can use. So we're going to go ahead and bring this over here and land. Man, there sure is a lot of trucks that go by here. I didn't realize that before. So I'm going to be using the controller that comes with the Skydio. Now I guess this is something that they kind of borrowed or in cooperation with Parrot. And it's kind of funky. It's kind of fat in my hand just a little bit. I mean, it's not bad. I do love the buttons back here. This one paddle button here up and down is the gimbal. I like that it's up and down. And the gimbal is up and down instead of having a wheel that's sideways when the gimbal's up and down. I don't know, it's just a weird thing for me. So I'm using the tablet mount that comes with the Pro kit. I'm not sure if you can buy it separate or not. I'll look into that. So let's go ahead and take off with this controller and see what it does. Something to note here is that all of this footage that I'm doing to see how the cinematic characteristics of the drone are straight off of the SD card. And all of these settings are in auto, and none of this footage is color graded. So the color signs that you see here, the saturation, things like that, are exactly the way it comes out of the drone in auto mode. And I know we could probably do it even better if we did run it in some of the manual modes and put a filter on and adjust and color correct. But I wanted you to see what it looks like straight out of the drone, which is not too bad. It looks pretty good, actually. Now the feedback on the display here is just a little bit jittery. It's clear, but it does seem like it has just a little bit of a jitter to it. So a little bit of a jittery lag in the feedback. Not bad, but I can see it's a little chunky. It's not totally fluid when I'm orbiting this pond here. I'm assuming the video that'll be recorded to the drone will be solid, so that'll be okay, but it still is just a little jittery in my FPV feed here. Okay, real nice. So no breakup at all. I've got the antennas up. That was supposed to give us some extended range, and it seems to be pretty well. And I'm out here where I just lost view of it, so I'm going to go ahead and turn around and come back here. Out about 1,900 feet here. Let's see what kind of speed we can get going with the wind here. And there is a little button up here, which is a boost button. I'm going to go ahead and try that as well. "31 miles an hour, 32 miles an hour, so it's moving right along. You guys tell me in the comments, what do you think this video looks like? Again, be kind, it is a 20-25 mile an hour wind, but from what I can see here, it looks really good. I would have no problem comparing this against any other cinematic drone camera out there at the moment, but we'll see when I get in the studio what this looks like here. Looks pretty stable. I didn't see any gimbal tilt, anything like that. So even with the controller, just like a regular drone, if we want to do a track and we wanted to track us or the controller, we can go ahead and click that now, and it would go into the follow mode. And if you're still here and enjoying the content, I'd appreciate it if you click that like button. And I am going to be doing follow-up videos with the Skydio 2 Plus because there's some features I didn't get to here. And I know they're going to be coming out with a firmware update shortly, which I'm going to go through the updates in that. So if you're not already, Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss when those new videos come out. So in a previous session, I tested out keyframes on the Skydio 2 Plus. And I have to say, this is one of the most impressive, ingenious modes that I've seen on drones to date. As you're going through your intended flight path, you can click the Add button to add a key point anywhere along the path. At that point, it will also store the camera angle. So in between these points, it will interpolate the camera view. So if you have it pointed in one direction at one keyframe and you have it pointed at 90 degrees in the next keyframe, in between those, it will make a cinematic turn to line up with that keyframe, with that camera angle that you've set. Now that makes for a really cinematic view. This is one of those modes where I think the Skydio 2 stands out way above any other drone out there, because this is not the same as waypoints. I can see the comments already that, oh yes, my drone has waypoints. This is not like waypoints. This is automated. It has great obstacle avoidance in between, and this path is completely repeatable. It is impressive. And when it does the obstacle avoidance, it tries to do it in such a cinematic way so that it doesn't kind of bump and jerk. Unless you're really close to something, it might slow down a little bit. But it is truly, truly impressive. I know they're going to be doing a firmware, a software update, making this even better. And I'm going to be sure to test this. That is going to be even more incredible when they update this firmware in a few weeks. And a smaller thing that might get overlooked, and I wanted to point out, was that it also can land on the case, which worked perfectly every time. All you have to do is get the drone close, point the camera down, and when you hit land, it will search for the logo on the case, and it will find it, rotate, and land on top of this case. So you don't even have to bring a separate landing pad. And every time I tried it, it worked. It was a little scary because this case is kind of small. But every time it went right there and it got a few inches above and just dropped and clunked right on the circle every single time. So for the last test, I'm going to go ahead and check out the beacon, and I am going to connect my phone so that I can see what the drone sees and so I can do a screen record of kind of what's going on at the same time. And let's just take it out, see if it can avoid some obstacles in this wind. Now this beacon is pretty intuitive. It can be used alone or it can be used with the app at the same time, which gives you really a lot more information. And honestly, it's a much richer experience when the drone is following you using the beacon. It works really well, and you can move it from side to side. You can move it up and down position, do different types of quick shots by pressing a few buttons on the beacon. However, having that app, knowing what the camera is seeing, being able to adjust certain things, being able to record sound while you're recording is a pretty big deal. So you don't have to use the app with the beacon, but I would recommend it because it is really going to enrich the experience that you get while you're trying to fly this. Okay, now I'm hidden by the tree. Let's see what it does with that. Okay, now it is GPS tracking me. So when you have a drone that has the tracking like this, and it loses track of its subject, then it substitutes GPS and continues to follow in a cinematic way, going up around trees, side to side, kind of searching for you until it reacquires, and then it keeps on going. That is pretty impressive. I've had so many instances where I've had drones that tout impressive tracking, and the first time you go behind a tree or you get some shadows, it just stops and sits there stupid in the sky, waiting for you to reacquire. And I have no worries whatsoever that if you're going through trees, around trees, in and out of shade, that this is going to do a really good job. And if you're wondering about this FAA shirt that I had on here, that is really nice. I would recommend that if you ever have the chance of having looky-loos come up, because once you see that shirt in combination with the orange cones that I put out, there's something about human nature when you see a safety shirt, when somebody's not trying to hide, but they actually have a shirt like this on that says that you're a licensed or a certified pilot. And they see those cones, people will come right up to the edge of the cone and want to talk to you, but they don't want to go past those cones. There's some kind of a psychological barrier that happens there. So it looks very official when people walk up. That's going to keep a lot of those looky-loos that just want to chat or walk up to you. Let them know that you're a professional out there doing a job. Even if you're just flying recreationally, that's okay. The links are in the description. If you have questions, of course, just let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to help. And at the end of the video, you have to sync your flight so that the audio gets synced onto the drone. Otherwise, that audio will be gone forever. But that is a big deal, being able to record that audio while you're out, not having to walk with the beacon in one hand or in your pocket and having the app, and then having to have another device recording you at the same time. So that is really a nice benefit as well. So let's talk briefly what comes with the kit, and you'll notice first off that I have 2 cases here, not just one. And that's because Skydio does an interesting thing in that when they start out with a basic kit, they'll start out with the small one here with the drone and a battery and just a couple of props and things like that in the kit. And I'll show all the kits up here so that you can see all the different configurations. And as they go higher in the kits, they still give you the same base kit, and then they add an add-on kit, which is this big case here that then gives you additional batteries and things like that. So I will kind of go through what is in this big case here since I have the Pro kit. But if you want to get the cinematic package, at least, because you want to make sure that you have the neutral density filters for this so you can run it in manual, get more cinematic footage. And you want to make sure that you have the extra batteries. Now, I really like, and I'll talk about that in a minute, tablet holder. I'm a big fan of that tablet holder. I know I mentioned it before in the video, but I like having that bigger screen, and it does a really good job. So I definitely would make sure that you get that as well. So let's just go through what comes in this kit. So the drone and such comes in this basic kit like I mentioned, but then I've transferred it all into this larger kit. So when you transfer it into this larger kit here, which is a really nice case, I mean, this is really substantial. I mean, this is not a small little cheapy case. This is a big hard case. So once you get into that big hard case, it comes with a lot of stuff, and it is laid out really well. And in this case, you can see that it's really packed in here. Not only do you have a controller, which I really like, you have the battery charger. We have 3 batteries over here. We have the tablet holder. We have the drone itself. Have extra props over in this side. We have the beacon as well. And then we have sets of cables. We have USB-C to USB-C for charging, plus another Apple cord with the lightning connector and another USB-C connection for the Androids. Underneath the drone then, when you do pull the drone out of the kit, that's where they store the neutral density filters along with some of your documentation. And in this little back slot, not only does it come with some information like you see here, but it also comes with an SD card. I believe it's a 128 gig SD card and an SD card reader. And one of the little pieces of documentation that's back in this corner is the manual, which just goes through some of the startup, setup, things like that. So it does a pretty nice job. And just to recap some of the important things if you missed them throughout the video. One is that it records sound all by itself, and then you can actually sync that to the drone. Something that's pretty unique to be able to record yourself in that app. And when you're out there being a solo creator, not having to mic up and have another camera, that's a pretty big deal. Really nice feature. 2 is the obstacle avoidance is second to none. It's just simply not. It is not anything that you've seen before. The quality is great. It's very consistent. They've done a great job, and they continue to make it better all the time. 3rd, this is a Swiss Army knife of drones. And by that, I mean you can use all these different modes of control. You can use the app by itself, just kind of moving it around. Yes, there's an app for that. You can use a controller with a tablet holder and have a full-featured handheld control unit in your hand. That's of good quality. And you can have a beacon that you can put in your pocket, hold in your hand. You can follow yourself, follow a motorcycle, follow a car, things like that. And then you can connect an app to the beacon, to the drone, so that you have a very rich experience of it following you. It truly is very versatile with all these control modes that are available. So really kudos to them. Next, it is made in the USA. It is designed, assembled, and supported in the USA. So that is really nice. And I also did chat with support. They didn't know who I was, of course. I was just some random guy asking dumb questions. And they were polite, and the answers seemed relevant. I did get sometimes in other drone manufacturers where I've tried to chat, and it seems like there's a bot that doesn't speak English that has no idea what you just asked, and they respond in some bizarre way. It is very frustrating, and I know you know what I mean. Having somebody respond in a thoughtful way that actually made sense was really nice from their support. And I asked specifically, where was your data housed? And they told me that indeed it was in California. So all the data, in addition to the hardware, is stored right here in the US as well. Lastly is the keyframes is phenomenal. With it showing the virtual path and being able to repeat those paths. it is really good. Again, I'm going to be doing another follow-up video on that because it's just so impressive. I'm sure I just scratched the surface on what's available. So when that one comes out, I'll be sure to post it so that you guys can see even more. But on the surface, this is an incredible option to have in a drone for this price range. And no drone is perfect. And I do have some dislikes that I think Skydio could address in the future. One is that it does bounce around a lot, or kind of really jerks around a little bit when it's tracking you, especially if you're kind of moving slow. If you're moving faster, I think it's a little more cinematic, a little smoother. However, when it is tracking, or even when it's just sitting there, it does seem to kind of bounce around, and it freaks you out a little bit. When I was using the manual mode for the camera, unless I missed it, there is no histogram that's pulled out. So I'm just kind of guessing on the exposure a little bit. So I wish they would pull a histogram out to the page. Next, this drone will not fly at night. Now, that's not a deal breaker for me because I don't do that very often. And I do have some other drones if I did want to take a cityscape or something like that. Again, for me, not a super big deal, but if that's something that you want to do, this just isn't going to work for you at this time. And lastly, one of my dislikes, I did list this as a disadvantage, and I'm almost to the point where I'm going to take it off my disadvantage list, and that is you can't turn off the obstacle avoidance and simply fly it in manual mode. And as I said, at first I thought that's kind of a dislike because I'd like to be able to do it, but seeing how good that obstacle avoidance is, it's almost like you need to treat this as a different type of drone, not another drone that you're used to that has this feature. You really have to treat it like a new animal. And if you think about it from that perspective, how good it is that you're not going to crash, and it will still try to do it cinematic. It just doesn't beep and stop. It does a pretty good job recovering. I'm thinking maybe this is more of a feature than a bug. I'm not totally sold, but it's slowly moving from a dislike to an acceptable dislike to maybe even a like. Maybe the more I fly it, the more I get used to it, the more that I'm familiar and comfortable with how that obstacle avoidance works. I might remove that from my dislike comments. Time will tell. We'll see in a future video if I do or not. I do appreciate you being here this long in the video. I realize it was a long one, so I'm not going to take any more of your time. And I'll just say thanks again. We'll see you in the next video.